The topic of Khalistan is very complex, but the meaning, the land of the pure, is consistent.
Defining Khalistan in the diaspora is a bit complicated. I feel that we've decided that Khalistan is a separate state within the nation state of India that is run by people who are Khalsas, who are Sikhs.
For the Indian state, the Khalistan movement is seen as a violent movement that threatens the territorial sovereignty of India.
It's an idea that has been developed over time, but that is steeped in history.
And when a government or an institution erases the history or tampers with religion, you will see resistance.
There's different points of the history which are significant. We can go as far back as the colonial period through Maharaja Ranjit Singh, a kingdom centered in the capital being Lahore.
Maharaja Singh is a tangible historical marker that plays a very important role in showing that actually there is a possibility of Sikh rule, successful Sikh rule.
But it wasn't until the British came when his empire crumbled. So I think people go back to that golden age and dream that that is something that we will get back, where we'll be autonomous, where we will know our boundaries.
One of the ways is talked about is to have that return to the Sikhs, right? What that looks like, as I mentioned, is debated.
Muslims were saying, we want out. We want our own country. We don't want to be ruled by the Hindus. And they were afforded East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Punjab was divided. 3/4 of Punjab went to Pakistan. 6 stayed with India.
In the 1940s, Khalistan was part of the discussion post-partition, and this was important because it led to questions concerning the Sikh identity, the Sikhs themselves not having a homeland.
In the new Punjab, they were again a minority.
After partition, I think Punjabis and Sikhs thought that they did get the short end of the stick, because soon after that, as India developed as a nation state, there was a big stress on Punjab to feed the rest of India, because it was still a burgeoning population and very little food.
Punjab is the breadbasket feeding all of India, yet infrastructurally it was neglected. All of these really adversely affected the farmers, but also the social conditions of the institutions, the judiciary, the police.
This is setting the stage up for a feeling that Sikhs do not belong in the Indian nation state, and that there will be no equality, that they will be second-class citizens.
Sant Jarnel Bhindranwale. The charismatic preacher was a leading proponent of a separate Sikh state named Khalistan.
Bhindranwale preached a fiery message mixing religion and nationalism. Moderate Sikh leaders are opposed to separatism, but now they say Bhindranwale's death will make him a martyr.
I think the leaders that came forward, like Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale, came out of a sense of resistance and unrest.
He would often say that, I'm not asking for Khalistan, but if Indira Gandhi's administration wants to give Sikhs Khalistan, and that's the way that Sikhs can become sovereign, then we'll take it.
He was actually a saint to begin with, simply asking for social reforms. On the other hand, he also created an aura that he could kill anyone.
Bhindranwale took up residence in the Golden Temple. From his fortified sanctuary there, he presided over a ruthless campaign of bombing, sabotage, and assassination that claimed hundreds of lives.
Even Bhindranwale, who was obviously one of the most militant Sikh leaders, he mobilized a lot of Sikhs. Especially the Hindus, they get scared that you are targeting us. It leads to 1984 entry of the army in Golden Temple.
It took an entire battalion of Indian troops backed by tanks and rockets to storm the Sikh Golden Temple in Amritsar.
Bloodletting began in earnest on the 5th of June, 1984. Codenamed Operation Blue Star, the Indian Army, on orders from Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, attacked the Golden Temple.
So 1984 is a seminal moment in our history because after the Golden Temple, which to us is a sacred site of worship and of religious history, was bombed by, attacked by the Indian government. It was sealed off. A lot of people died within it, pilgrims and others who were there at the time, innocent people.
The state narrative here is that this is meant to rout out terrorists or militants or fundamentalists who had come in to disrupt the sanctity of the temple precincts and who had refused to leave despite many attempts to get them out.
You ask the Indian government's position is there were a lot of terrorists who had moved in Golden Temple.
Until this week, the Golden Temple was the one place Mrs. Gandhi had not dared challenge the Sikh militants. But the assassination of 2 Hindu politicians in May was the last straw. 6 days ago, Mrs. Gandhi sent tens of thousands of soldiers into the Punjab for a showdown with Bhindranwale.
This group is blamed for not leaving, and the blame is squarely put on them for the attack and the devastation.
The guns and weapons. Now, who supplied him the guns? That's $1 million question.
Bhindranwale died in a hail of bullets, along with as many as 500 of his supporters.
So what happens over that week is difficult to discern, partly because of the amount of misinformation, but thousands of Sikhs lose their lives.
Shops and businesses all over the country closed their doors and Indians crowded into the streets. But the shock soon gave way to anger. The 66-year-old Prime Minister was the victim of gunmen identified as Sikh extremists. Her murder, the apparent culmination of a 2-year campaign of terror for the creation of an independent Sikh state.
And immediately the first news that comes out is that 2 Sikh bodyguards have killed her.
This is quickly afterwards followed by the assassination of Indira Gandhi, seen as a retribution killing. And then several days of attacking, killing, maiming, raping, and torturing Sikhs in the capital in Delhi.
There was the systematic interrogation and arrests of Sikh youth. So it was literally almost like cleaning out parts of India.
Really grotesque violence. Mothers who were raped, in front of their sons, and then killed, only to have the daughter raped before the father and brother.
What happens in India from now on will have tremendous impact on whether tensions continue to mount in Canada. Rajiv Gandhi was not able to prevent the massacre of Sikhs after his mother's death. The picture tells the horror, but many people suspect the whole story is not being told.
The commissions that have read that time and have written reports on that time say that government was involved, police was involved. The Sikhs have never forgiven India for that.
The discourse around it has been controlled to a great degree by India, which certainly sees it as a terrorist movement. Why? Because of some elements within the movement who have been attracted to the acquisition of arms, militarized training, and militant behavior. However, there are many parts of it that are not linked to violence or militancy, but rather to the autonomy of the Punjab, the economic development of the Punjab.
This is the biggest problem in studying the Khalistan movement, is what is truth, what is fact. After 1984, it was a violent confrontation on both sides.
Then the Air India bombing happens.
Air India Flight 182, bound for New Delhi, explodes off the coast of Ireland.
Air India was one of the biggest acts of terrorism in our Canadian history, which, unfortunately, so many Canadians don't really understand or know about.
329 people are killed.
This is where Tahir Sadiq came to learn that, yes, indeed, his mother was dead.
Her name was Sugra Sadiq, age 65, a retired doctor going home for a visit.
My mother.
On June 23rd every year, I hear from people who've lost their classmates, their colleagues, friends from the neighborhood. There's so many people who've been touched by this tragedy, and there's been no justice for their loved ones, for our loved ones.
So that really festered in people a wound that I think has not ever again been really has not healed because there's been no resolution.
The issue has been who's responsible.
We don't know who did it, but it was linked to the movement of Khalistan.
And I would argue that the activism in Canada is unique and distinct because of Air India. And it has impacted identity formation for many Sikh men in particular, who now feel that they feel a violent gaze conferred onto their turban.
The chants make it clear what this was all about. A call for an independent Sikh state known as Khalistan.
Hundreds of community members and supporters of the Khalistan movement came together, all to commemorate the life of Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Outside of a certain range of flashpoints, in the Punjab, broadly speaking, in India, Khalistan is not a major issue. The context, I think, of Sikhs broadly is also relevant. It's about 1.5 to 2% of the Indian population. India is a vast entity with almost 1.5 billion people.
Quite interestingly, the movement is only in diaspora. In Punjab, you don't see this movement.
Khalistan is always changing in terms of how it's being envisioned by the next generation. And so the Sikh diaspora today in Canada, in England, in America, in Australia are questioning identity, and their identity is formed around the activism confronting inequality.
We live in this global context where this is a festering wound, if you want to think of it. The term Khalistan is one of the ways that people can express this frustration.
Contemporary ideas of Khalistan continue to be fraught with difficulty, with polarization, with people on one side or the other. But I think if greater minds came together, perhaps at a round table or a discussion, perhaps we can understand the past so we can create a better future, if that is the future we want.